What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Board Games Are for Everybody. Today, we are going to be going through a big chunk of our pickups from May 2022. We got a handful of stuff here. I think about 20 or so games to go through. So in no particular order, we're just going to get into it. I will say right off the bat, we do have a game in here that is probably a bit of a touchy subject. We aren't going to get to it until a little later. It's kind of at the bottom of a pile. But if you are in any way uncomfortable with particular wartime symbols, maybe skip over that part when we get to it. I'll mention it when we get to it again, but just want to make that clear from the get-go. But let's get into this. Let's start off with The Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. This is a tabletop miniatures game, something I really didn't know when I picked it up. I did not realize that right on the back of the game it says miniatures available separately. I bought it online, so I didn't actually have access to the back of the box. I just know it was something I've heard a lot of good things about, and I'm a fan of Skyrim. I liked it, so I thought I would try it out. I did not, however, realize that it did not come with any of the stuff you need to actually play the game. It has the rule books, it has all of the item cards, it has all of your character cards and stuff like that, but there's no map. There's no miniatures of any sort in this set. That's all stuff you have to buy separately to be able to play it. So I'm hoping I can find some sort of alternative, because a lot of those miniatures are a little too pricey for me. So we're probably not going to be going that route, but hopefully it is something we'll be able to get into a little down the line, because it is something I'm interested in. We just may not have a very fancy looking campaign going on with some alternate pieces. But that is Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. Excited to get into that. Second thing we got here is a lot of glare. Keyforge Age of Ascension. This is apparently not so much an expansion, but I guess a second I don't know what the right word is. Expansion is the best thing I can think of. It's not like a re-implementation of a game. It's just an addition to the game. It adds some new stuff to the game. Keyforge is something I know zero about. I'm not huge into card games. I feel like if I'm spending money, I should be getting something a little more substantial as far as board games go. However, this one was only like $25. I was just trying to pad out some stuff so I didn't have to pay shipping. And I see the packs for Keyforge everywhere, but I have never actually seen just the base game. And it is a 2-player starter set. I typically only have one other person to play games with, so I look for as many 2-player games as I can. This is one that again, I don't know much about, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to try it out. I did play a lot of like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, the trading card games, so I don't mind getting into another card game, but we'll have to see if it's actually good or not. If anyone's played Keyforge, let me know down below what you think of it. Keyforge Age of Ascension. Hopefully we'll get into that sometime soon. Next up, we have Tetris, the strategy game. Not really a board game, but Tetris the game. I got this as a birthday gift. I'm a big fan of Tetris. What can I say? I like Tetris. And every time we're going through Walmart, I see this and I'm like, this is too expensive for what it is. I don't want to spend money on this. But it was given to me as a birthday gift. I'm excited to play it. I won't lie. It looks interesting. It is something that interests me every time I walk by it. I just didn't want to spend the money on it. I thought it was a little too expensive for what it is, but it looks cool. Visually, I like the way it looks. I'm excited to give it a try. That's Tetris, the board game, I guess. It's not really a board game, but that's Tetris. Next thing, we got 2 things here. We picked up Onitama Way of the Wind and Onitama Sensei's Path. This is one of the things we grabbed when we grabbed Keyforge, just trying to push that dollar amount up so we didn't have to pay shipping on this stuff. These are the only 2 expansions to Onitama we didn't have yet. Sensei's Path is just the card expansion. It's just more movement options for your pieces, which is nice. Way of the Wind is the second expansion that came out, I believe. It adds a new mechanic to the game with the wind icon. Let's see if I can get it on here. It also adds some new movement cards, but it also has the little the wind down there that adds some new properties to the game. And Sensei's Path is just strictly a card upgrade. Onitama is a really fun game. It is something we will talk about someday. It'll happen eventually. But these were the only 2 that were missing. We did pick up Light and Shadow, I believe it's called, the expansion that came out I think it came out fairly recently. So these were the only 2 that we were still missing. And the place that we got them from, they were selling them for, I think, like $15 a piece, when everywhere else we've seen them, they've always been like $24 to $30 just for one of them. So $15 a piece. Very excited to have those. Anytime I can play more Onitama, I'm happy. Any way to make it new. Next up, so heavy. The bulkiest thing we got, War of the Ring, 2nd edition. This game is a monster. I really like Lord of the Rings. I am a big fan of stuff like Risk, strategy games, stuff like that. So I've wanted to pick up War of the Ring for a long time. I didn't even realize that there was a 2nd edition of the game until fairly recently, and this came out a long time ago, quite a while ago. But I had never realized there was a 2nd edition of the game. The board game store that we go to posted on their social media that they got War of the Ring back in stock, and I was like, I'm gonna go pick that up. This game is massive. It is very hard to learn. I think the instructions are like 48 pages or something like that. I have watched some videos online which make it a little easier, but we have not been able to sit down and even start this game yet. We haven't had a chance to. But War of the Ring is definitely something that I want to get into. We just need to find the time. I think typical games can last anywhere from 4 or 5 hours plus. And on top of that, we're still learning how to play the game, so it would probably take even longer. But yeah, War of the Ring, definitely something I'm interested in. Definitely something that I am looking forward to getting into. Next up, we have Dwarven Dig. This was one that I found on Kijiji, just a buy and trade site. It just looked interesting. I just liked the way that it looked. It's got little dwarven miniatures. They're just like a rubbery kind of plastic. There's actually a few of them in there that are a little bent and they don't quite stand up anymore, so I need to find a way to flatten out their bases. But this is more or less a tile laying game where you have a randomly assorted set of tiles that are set up at the beginning of the game, and you are digging your way into this cave structure, whatever you would consider it, in order to find the treasure in the center of the cave, basically. The center being the farthest side of the board from where you start. I am a big fan of tile laying games. I'm a big fan of randomization in games. I thought it was a pretty cool concept. We haven't had a chance to play yet. We read the rules, and it by the time we finished going through the rules, it was just a little too late to start playing. But it is pretty simple to get down. I think I more or less understand the rules from when I went through it. There are a couple confusing ones, but I think for the most part I understand it. So this is one we just have to sit down and try. But Dwarven Dig, definitely looking forward to giving this one a shot. I really like the way it looks. I really like the miniatures and stuff. Dwarven Dig. Next thing we got is Tokyo Highway. We did a unboxing video of this recently. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. Tokyo Highway is an abstract game. If you guys have been watching, you know that I'm a big fan of abstract games. I'm a fan of being able to find a way to make a game something weird. I think it's a really cool concept. Basically, you're using popsicle sticks, more or less, to create these crazy roadways to place your cars on, and the object is to try and get all of your cars down before your opponent. But the only way you can put a car on the road is if you cross over another opponent's road. So playing with 3 or 4 people, that could definitely go pretty quick. Playing with 2 people, bit more strategic, having to get over your opponent's road. But this was what I was really excited to try. I love the table presence. I love the way it looks. It's such a simple game, but it just looks amazing once you have it all out and set up. By the time this video goes up, we will probably have already sat down and play this. Hopefully we can actually get a video of a playthrough up. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, Tokyo Highway, very excited to sit down and start playing that one. It's a really cool looking game, a really fun looking game from when we did that unboxing and went through the rules. Really cool time. Next up, we have Zaxxon. I was about to say probably the oldest game that is in this pile, but it's definitely not the oldest game that's in this pile. Zaxxon is a game that we actually did a video on. I think that will be up before this video comes out. It may not be up before this video comes out, but I have recorded a video on Zaxxon. This is a game based on the video game. This came out, I want to say, in 1982, I believe. We don't have the trademark over here. There's a trademark somewhere on the back. I believe this came out in 1982. It feels like it came out in 1982. We actually did sit down and play this one. It's pretty simple, but I don't know. It's a cool. I really like this game. It's a simple game, but just the look of it, just the little miniature ships that you can raise up or down to change the altitude. I think it's a fun time. I don't know what it is. I just think it's a charming game. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good game. It's simple. It's definitely for a certain group of people, but I really enjoyed it. I like the way that the game looks. But yeah, that's Zaxxon. We have a video that is either already out or that is coming out. You can go check that out to kind of see a playthrough of the game as well as my impressions on it. But yeah, that is Zaxxon. Next, that was a really awkward way to say Zaxxon. That's Zaxxon. Next up, we have Zodiac Clash. This was a game we got off of Kijiji. It looked really interesting. Basically, we have sat down and played this one. Basically, this is like Connect 4 on steroids. This is like Super Connect 4. You have these 4 different tiers, and you need to try and get your constellations in a row going up the tiers. However, all the tiers, minus the bottom one, the top 3 tiers can actually rotate. So you're constantly moving your opponents and your own pieces, trying to line them up. But on top of that, you also have a Zodiac that moves around the board and can grant powers based on what the Zodiac sign is. The instructions like to say that they're game-breaking powers, and some of them are pretty game-breaking. But I think it's definitely something that kind of keeps the game fresh. And once you have everything out of the box and set up, it's a really, really good looking game. I really like the way that the game looks, especially if you got some sunlight coming in. You have that kind of rainbow effect, like metallic-y rainbow effect just oozing off of the game. It's a really, really good looking game once it's all set up. But yeah, we really enjoyed this one. Zodiac Clash. If you like Connect 4 and we're like, hey, we need a better Connect 4, this is the game to do it. Zodiac Clash, really cool game. Really enjoy it. That's that. Next up, we have Raw. This is a game I have never heard of before until after we picked this up. We got this at a thrift store, I want to say for $2 or $3. I want to say it was $3. I believe this is the 2016 version of the game. Raw is apparently a pretty highly praised game, which is not something I knew. But when I was looking on Board Game Geek, a lot of people seem to actually quite enjoy this game. So I'm looking forward to trying it out. We haven't had a chance to sit down and try it yet. I think there's actually a Kickstarter going up, or is already up, for a new print of Raw to come out. I think I've seen on Board Game Geek, I think there was just a banner or something for it, but I think there's actually a new version of Raw coming out. But yeah, this is one that I really don't know anything about. It was only a couple bucks and all the pieces were there, and it looked like an interesting game, so we picked it up. We haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it is one that we're hopefully going to hop into. But yeah, that is Raw. Next up, we have Bob Ross, The Art of Chill. This is one that we actually got last month. I forgot to put it in the video, so we're putting it in the video now. This game is surprisingly pretty fun. Granted, we only got it for $5, so that may skew our perception of how good it actually was. I think when I still worked in retail, this game retailed for like $30, $25 or $30. But this is a gorgeous game. The production of this game is really good. I want to grab this out here if I have it. It's more or less set up. Basically, while you're playing the game, you have this big easel here that holds the different paintings that you're trying to recreate. Let's see if I can find here they are. You have this big easel here that holds all of the different paintings here, so you can see the photo while you're playing. Now, you're just supposed to grab one and put it up here. You see the photo while you're playing, and this really just brings the game to life while you're playing. Like, having this easel up here, I don't know, it just being able to see the actual photos and stuff. Like, we got a bunch of, I can only assume, are actual Bob Ross photos, but the artwork is just really great, and the easel being in the backdrop there while you're playing, I don't know, I just think it's a really cool addition to the game. But yeah, that was probably very poorly explained. I don't want to make it seem like it's some sort of groundbreaking thing that's been added to the game. I just think it really makes the game look nice. I think it's a really, really gorgeous looking game. But it is one that we sat down and played. We played through a couple times. We actually enjoyed it. We enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a pretty simple game to learn, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Bob Ross, Art of Chill. That's pretty much all I got for that. Fun game. It's a fun game. Next up, we have The Journeys of Paul, historical strategy game. Now, I am not Catholic. In fact, I am not really religious at all. This is one we picked up because I've actually heard some good things about it. It's more or less a racing game where you are trying to, journey back to the beginning of Christianity. This is when, I guess, Paul was starting different Christianity chapels, churches. Is that the right term? Around Rome. I know this was like a big deal in the history of the Catholic history. this was like an important thing. Unfortunately, I just know next to nothing about it. All I know is that it's a fairly decent game. It is one that will probably end up selling, but I do know that it's apparently it's an okay game. It's a decent game. It turns out that it was actually still sealed when we got it. We got it at a thrift store, but we still have everything unpunched. The cards were still in their plastic, so whoever had it before us, apparently they just decided not to play it. Possibly it was a gift, and maybe they also weren't religious. But yeah, it's I saw that it's a decent game, has decent ratings. Apparently it's pretty easy to learn, so I figured we would sit down and maybe give it a try, even though we aren't religious. You know, you don't have to have the religious theming to be a good board game, so could still be a good game. But yeah, that's Journeys of Paul. Next up, we've got, if I can reach it back here, Don't Break the Ice. This is a game that I played in my childhood. It wasn't a game I ever owned, but I had a friend that owned it. Break the Ice, super simple game. You're basically just breaking blocks out of this big square, trying not to let the guy sitting down in the middle or wherever you place him on the pedestal drop down. This obviously isn't a complex game. This is something I bought because it is something from my childhood. It's something that I remember, and I just really wanted to have it. So yeah, Break the Ice, super simple game. I'm a fan. I like it. Don't Break the Ice. Next thing we got here is Propaganda. Now, this is something I've never heard of. I did some research. Oh, there goes my elastic. I did some research into it. Apparently, it is from 1966, I believe. I believe there are a bunch of different prints. I believe this one specifically is from 1966. If you know if that's not the case, leave a comment down below. Let me know. But this was basically a game that taught people about the kind of propaganda that was used in the news, in media in general, and it tries to teach you how to look out for propaganda, basically, how to look out for things like straw manning, how to look out for things like, what else do we got in here? The Experts Game, the Persuasion Rule. Do we have a table of contents? We do have a table of contents. So, like Section A, techniques of self-deception. You got prejudice. You have academic detachment. You have drawing the line. You have not drawing the line. Conservatism, radicalism, moderatism. You have rationalization. You have wishful thinking. You have tabloid thinking. Casual oversimplification. Inconceivability. Section B, you have techniques of language, so stuff like emotional terms, metaphors and similes, quotations out of context, abstract terms, vagueness, shift of meaning. You have techniques of irrelevance, such as appearance, degrees of titles, and it goes on and on. You have techniques of exploitation, you have techniques of form, techniques of maneuver. But like you have an entire book here. I think this thing's like 94 pages. '71 pages. 71 pages of just all these propaganda terms. And then you have, if I can get to it here, it's a pretty tight fit in here. And then you have a game based around it where you're trying to prove that you're no longer going to be persuaded by propaganda. Like you start down here at the what the number implies section, and you have, if I can get them out here, you have these different cards down here that have all of these different examples on them of different things, and you have to predict which of the 10 rules of propaganda that the book goes over is what applies to that card. And if you get it correct, you move up. You can become a clear thinker, or if you get it wrong, you move down on the track and you can end up in the dingling section. Someone who is always fooled by propaganda, I guess, is a dingling. But this is something that I just thought was super cool. We saw it, and I didn't know anything about it. I actually didn't know how old it was until we had gotten home and I had started looking into it. But it was interesting. I thought it was really interesting. I liked the concept once I started looking into it, and I was like, yeah, this is like back in 1966, everyone probably should have read this thing. Maybe we'd be in a better way nowadays if a few more people knew what kind of propagandas are out there and how they're being influenced by things. But yeah, propaganda, really interesting piece of history, really interesting concept, and something that I definitely want to sit down and try. Next thing we got is Exploding Kittens. We found this one in a thrift store as well. It is a game I've heard about a bunch of times. It was one of those party games that everyone was talking about for a while. It's just a card game that I'm dropping all over the place. Like I had mentioned before, I'm not huge on card games, but it was pretty cheap, and I know some people have said some good things about it, so I wanted to try it out. I really don't know a whole lot about it, so there's that. But it is something that apparently is pretty easy to learn, so hopefully we're going to sit down and give that a try. Exploding Kittens. We'll see what happens with that. Next up, we have Guacamelee. No, Guacamole, not Guacamele. That's a video game. We have Guacamole. Guacamole is more or less a card game, like we were saying before. Not huge on card games. This one isn't actually all that bad. Basically, the way the game works is you have your different tiers of salsa. You have your mild, medium, and spicy, and you're trying to complete the ingredients on each thing in order to collect them to gain points. So your cards have all the different ingredients in them, and in order to pick up one of the salsa cards, you need to have the exact amount of ingredients in your hand. So each turn you discard and draw cards, or draw cards that your opponent discards, in order to try and get the right amount for each different salsa. We did sit down and play this one. It was pretty fun. It's pretty basic, but it was a pretty fun game. Guacamole, not bad. Next up, we have, in unfortunately pretty rough condition, we have Dungeon of Doom. Now, this is an old game from 2002, I believe. Yep, 2002 down here. This is back when games were more toy-like. The early 2000s were a great time for games, honestly. I love a lot of the games from the early 2000s, the late 90s. They really made things different, is the best word I can use. They were unique. This one uses a battery to make the skull jump around if you insert a key into the treasure chest that isn't the correct key. But basically, this is a game where you're just doing different challenges that come up on the cards, and if you successfully complete the challenge, you get to choose one of the keys, and you get to attempt to open the treasure chest that is holding the gold coins. It's a pretty basic concept, but it's a fun time. It's a wild time. If you get the right group of people to sit down and play it, Dungeon of Doom, it's a fun time. It's a good game. So that's Dungeon of Doom. Next up, we got Rock Me Archimedes. This was also one that we got last month that I forgot to put in last month's video, so we're putting it in here. This is another abstract game. Basically, it is a balancing game where you're trying not to have your side of the I don't know what the correct term is. I'm just going to use it as a I don't know what the correct term is. Your Archimedes, you're trying not to have your side of your Archimedes, as the game would put it, touch the ground. And to do that, you have to balance out the sides, and you want to get your marbles to a certain point on the opposite side of the board. So you kind of have to balance out what is and isn't a good move. It's a game that looks really nice. I thought that it looks really good when you have it set up. It would be a great like display piece. The game out of the box is all right. You definitely need to do some tweaks to make it a little better, but it's not a bad game. It looks really nice, but I think you need to play with the right kind of person to really appreciate something like this. It is a little more chess-like in that you're trying to figure out what the right moves are there, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's as complicated as chess is. But that's Rock Me Archimedes. It's not bad. You need to put a little work into it in order to make it work a little better, but it's not a bad game. Next up, we got the game we were talking about at the beginning of the video. If wartime symbols and stuff like that make you uncomfortable, I would skip ahead. This next one does have a particular wartime symbol that I know can be offensive to people. However, it's a piece of history. To censor it out would be acknowledging that something didn't happen, which I don't think is the appropriate way to handle that kind of stuff. So if it's something that you aren't a fan of, just skip ahead in the video. But we are talking about the Escape from Colditz. This is a World War II game based on the Colditz camp, prisoners of war. This game is something I picked up. I saw it on Kijiji. Someone was selling it, and it is a piece of history, basically. It is something that I just thought looked interesting. I like the artwork on the front box here. The other thing about this is that it was partially designed by one of the soldiers who escaped this particular camp. And that is pretty incredible that someone who actually escaped was part of the team that worked on this game. And if that doesn't say something about it, then I mean, the game wouldn't have been made in the first place, right? I think there are editions of this game that were released later on that removed all of the swastika symbols and stuff like that, which kind of makes this version of the game a bit of a relic in the history of the game. They basically did what everyone did, which was try to wash away all the symbols of something that happened. And I think trying to erase the fact that bad things happened in the world is not the right way to go. You need to acknowledge that unfortunately things don't go great all the time, but that is the Escape from Colditz. We haven't had a chance to sit down and play it yet, but it is something that we want to sit down and give a shot at some points. That is going to bring us to our last game here, which is the oldest game that we've picked up. It's also incredibly heavy. That is Derby Day. This is a horse racing game that, to my understanding, when I was looking it up on Board Game Geek, is from 1915. That is over 100 years ago, which is just ridiculous. However, it's possible it's also from the 1930s. It may not quite be from 1915. I've seen some conflicting articles about when it's actually from, but someone was just getting rid of it, and I was like, this is a piece of board game, just something from that era. Like this is a big memory for board games, something that old. It's just a basic roll and move kind of game. However, it looks I mean, it looks like it's from the 1930s, honestly. Looks from it like it's from really old, but we've got nice bulky wooden horse pieces. We've got our hurdles. We've got our board. It is a little dirty. It's something I want to try and sit down and clean up a little bit. Even the dice. The dice are very yellowed and look old. It is a little dirty. I want to sit down and I want to try and clean it up, see if we can restore the box a little bit. But at the same time, I don't want to damage the box at all. So hopefully when we sit down to do that, we can get some of this grime off without damaging the box at all. But yeah, that wraps up the board games that we picked up this month. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know any board games on this list that you have, that you enjoy, or if there was anything that you saw that maybe you are now interested in. Let me know any board games that you've picked up. Maybe there is some stuff that I will have to look into. But that is pretty much it for this video. So thank you guys very much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I will see you all next time. But until then, just remember that board games are for everybody, and I'll see you all then. Peace.